and Hashem is looking after everything. I'm in a completely different level now. I got powers to go ahead, and I do go ahead, and I will go ahead, and whatever. He starts asking Hashem, what do you really want of me? Not what would I like for myself? What do I sort of think when I'm on a low level just with my revealed neshama? But he starts asking Hashem, what do you really want of me? And what am I really supposed to be doing? And so on and so forth. So that's why we have a Rabbi. And that's the whole reason when you're not sure anymore, but you want, and you would like very much, to make a fulfillment of this new enlightenment and kesher that you have in your life. You want to know, what am I supposed to do? And that's why you have a Rebbe. A Rebbe tells you what you're supposed to do. And happy are those people that they actually met the Rebbe and saw him and they heard from him what they're supposed to be doing. Those who didn't, they have other ways of doing it, through the Igeres Kodesh, or other ways, through Mashpiyim, or through Shichas, and all sorts of things. You can come to know what the Rebbe really wants. But you need a bit of a system. So that's the whole idea of LECH-LECHA-2. You got to go to your real self, and you got to daven. And it doesn't mean you got to be a big makubal and you have to know all the kavanas ariza. There were few people who did. Very few, but there were a few that they lived the whole day and night with kabbalas ariza and all the kavanas. Very few people. What the Shem wants is a lashon in the Gemara which says, Rahmana liba boy. The Eibusha wants your heart. He wants you to daven sincerely and tmimas dik, and how do you call it? Give yourself away to him. But tmimas meaningfully, and to mean what you're davening, and to really be in it, and then you make this connection with Yetzim and Shom. So the Alshik finishes off with that, and that's good for you guys as well. That he says that where are you going to be able to make that kesher be'emes in the best possible way if you're in Eretz Yisrael. And he said, that's why I'm telling you that you got to go to get all these things, to find your real self. You got to go to Eretz Yisrael.
Well, this is when maybe we'll
so you guys are in Eretz Yisrael. So the answer is, what's so special about Eretz Yisrael? So he said, Eretz Yisrael is Oretz Asher Arech, or I will show you, meaning I will give you vision. I will give you Ra'io, that you'll be able to do that. Paul Neskesha with Yetzim and Neshama, because Eretz Yisrael is a very special place. If you have the right attitude, and you live in Eretz Yisrael the way you're supposed to live, then you see things different. You see things different, and Hashem literally guides you to see things different, and then you find your real self. Up to here is a quote from the Rabbi Moshe Alshi. His shul is just down here. So I think that's a very profound lesson. And that's what he says, that's what it means. Lech-LECHA-2, go to your real soul. Ba'oretz asher arecho in Davkin Eretz Yisrael. And it's very well known. We mentioned before about the Arizal, that when the Arizal came here to Eretz Yisrael, he was a very, very tremendous high Bal Madrega, Kiyadua. But he said that when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he had almost incomparably higher revelations. Yeah, the whole time. So from that we learn that Eretz Yisrael is a Oretz Asher Arecho, that there's a special, if you tune in properly. So Hashem has to help that Eretz Yisrael is for the Yidden. It's from Avraham Avinu on, and that's what the Rabbi told the whole world. And it's not going to help anything. It's not going to, and all these hidden, and they're sitting in the Knesset, and they think that, oh yeah, they know better, and they know this, and they're just ruining things, Rahman LECH-LECHA-2. And the only way is to listen to the Rabbi. The Rabbi is the Novi, HaGodel, and he knows, and he says, and he tells us what we need to do about Eretz. And if you look carefully, everything the Rabbi said is 100%, bull. And they know it. They know it. But they say it's unreal. Because if you're in the Sitra Achra, Rahman LECH-LECHA-2, then what is Kedusha? It looks unreal. What is Kedusha? Looks unreal. What are we supposed to give you? You've had hot coffee, but good to sagen. Maybe we should give you some vodka or something. Yeah, that's the union that the Novi tells us in Eretz Yisrael what we really need to know. And once we live in Eretz Yisrael, we face a possibility that because there's so much Kedusha in Eretz Yisrael, then the other side can't put up with that. There's a famous Ramban in Pasha B'chu Kaisai, where the Ramban says that why is it the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and everything? The Beis HaMikdash was the most holy place it's ever been. How come it was destroyed? Because the other side couldn't take it that there was so much Kedusha. And therefore the other side means the Clippers, they put all their efforts. And Rahman LECH-LECHA-2, they were at least succeeded with the Eitim, with the Avonim of the Beis HaMikdash. But the Pnimis of the Beis HaMikdash, they didn't succeed. And not with the Pnimis of Eretz Yisrael either. That's for sure. That's the union of what the Rabbeinu Moshe Alchik, well, that's what he has to say. So now, I want to suggest to you another view of this pasuk, and that will help us to understand what we just said, and through that we'll come to the Gula Shlema. So what are we hinting at? And that's like this. We see that there are these three levels if you want to really go to your real self, or you want to, that it could go in a real way and depart from where you are and go to the land which you see, you have the Eretz Asher Recha, you've got to go out of Artzecha, Meiladetecha, Mebeis Avicha. There's three different levels you've got to get out of. So let's think for a moment and try and work out what are these three things that you've got to move out of. Once you move out of them, then you're on your way to Eretz Yisrael. It's killer that you're already there. So what are they? Artzecha. So what does the word Artzecha mean? So it's put down in certain drushim of Chassidus that Artzecha is from the word Eretz. And Eretz means the ground, the earth. And so that there's a inifan Artzecha. That's your earth and your ground. And what is that? You've ever heard of earthliness? Mm-hmm. You ever heard of earthliness?
I'd say.
In other words, that we all take the Kashmiristic world very seriously. Mm-hmm. And we get all wrapped up and all, to use the expression, or we get all Google-eyed, about the Gashmias. The Gashmias ends up being mavalbul the person. It confuses him, mavalbul him. And in a way, one can understand it because he's only in a Gashmistic guf and he's here in the Gashmistic world. So it's an understandable thing that he's near. And that's only mitzad the guf. Over mitzad the neshama, you have to be higher than the Gashmias. Well, upon him, you don't let the Gashmias run your life. In other words, that you've got to be in charge But the Gafne is not the Gafne is in charge of you. And so therefore, Hashem said to Avraham Avinu, listen, Avraham Avinu, you're a high guy, with everything, but you've got to go now in a new way. You've got to go somewhere, and you've got to be in Eretz Yisrael in a way that you'll see Gilei Elokus. You've got to get rid of this, how they call it, arduous business. You follow? How they call it, earthliness, and taking the physical and the Gashmias serious. Now that doesn't mean that you have to just disregard Gashmias altogether, and you know, how they call it, I don't know if any of you guys would be suspected of such aims, but not sleep and not eat and all that, that wouldn't be good. Mm-hmm. But you've got to eat and sleep and do all the things that you're in charge. You are aiming at certain inyanim. For that purpose, you need to eat a little bit of something. You need to slow up a bit. You need here and you need there. Or the Gashmis is a value, not a value. So the other night I was talking to a guy up in Begin, and he said, listen, I got to leave. So I said, why you got to leave? So he said, because I got to go home, I got to help my wife. You know, I said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I got to help her change the kids and put them to bed. I didn't quite catch exactly what he said. So I said to him, you want to know something? When I was a young guy, you know, in my 30s and that, I didn't know how to change a baby's nappy. I didn't know. I got from some children, and they were growing up. I didn't know how to change a nappy. I never had anything to do with it. I'm LECH-LECHA-2 made it clear. That's not my business. You know, so I'm not in that game. You know, so I don't know. I've never asked my wife, is she really in agreement with that? Well, we're still married. You know, we haven't blown it yet. We're getting not all that young anymore, you know. We're getting up and Baruch Hashem, you know. So that's what it means. You mustn't be, you know, that the Gashmias controls your life and you couldn't do this because your wife said it, and if not, wait. Just take a fella. The world will, there's an old saying in Yiddish, the Welt geht nicht unter, you know, the world's not going under. That's one in our cheers. So then he says, the next thing is you've got to go up LECH-LECHA-2. That's your birthplace. So it's brought down and considered from the Friedricher Rebbe, that the Friedricher Rebbe said, what does it mean your birthplace? He said, birthplace means things that you're born with. Meaning that we've all got sort of customs and habits and ways of doing things, that's the way we are, that's the way we were born. Yeah, and you'll say to somebody, listen, would you like to get into this Indian with me, or would you like to take on a certain Indian in learning or something? They say, oh, that's not for me, I don't have that sort of thing. I'm not built that way or anything. Ain't of I could say. You've got to realize that all those habits and all the customs and all that looks to you to be what you think, you can really change it if you want. You don't have to be the way you were. You don't have to be accustomed to all your customs and all your known, and all the ways you've always done things. You can be completely out of all that. So therefore, Avraham Avinu was told by Hashem, you've got to go out of all your customary understandings of your own soul. Because we live in all sorts of limitations, because we talk ourselves into it. I persuade me like, I can't really do that, that's not for me, you know, I'm not that sort of guy, I'm not this, I'm not that. You're anything. You got to realize, you just name it, we can do it. You got to be, a bit of a Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when we were kids, Superman used to say, up, up and away. You know, he used to, up, yeah. Everything's Ashkocha Prada. The fact that I heard those crazy words, is a sign that has something to teach me. Up, up and away, away, out of your customary way of doing things. Don't do it the old way and you say, oh no, this is the way I am. This is my personality and this, you know, I'm limited, I'm not like other guys, you know. It's ain't the work, it's you got to be ready. So Hashem said to Avraham Avinu, go out from that. So Avraham Avinu just how do you call it? Avraham Avinu's already turning over the motors, you know. Then Hashem says to him, you've got to go out and be base over your. Now, according to certain great Meforshim, this was the hardest of all the Nisyonim that Avraham Avinu faced. Trials from Hashem, even harder than the Akedah. The Akedah was the last one. And it's interesting that here's the first one, according to some great authorities, and it's written LECH-LECHA. And by the last one, by the Akedah, it's also written LECH-LECHA. You say it every day in davening. The LECH-LECHA, Eretz HaMoriah. Kachas bincha shechidcha, asher ahavta v'LECH-LECHA. Yes, so it's LECH-LECHA, LECH-LECHA. We won't go into all that. However, we see from that that Avraham Avinu is being told by Hashem, forget about all, you know, what you assume about yourself, what you're sort of born with, and all, it's not important. You can be a Superman. Now he says, you got to go out of Beisor or Vichan, according to some authorities. That's the hardest of all the Nisyonos that Avraham had to face, to leave your father's house, you know, to leave, you know, where you were born and all the things that are dear to you and all the things, and you're supposed to honor your parents, and you're supposed to love your parents, Torah, but you've got to be prepared to leave them. And Avraham Avinu left his father. There's a whole kasha in the Meforshim. How come he did that, you know? But he left his father. So what does it mean? You've got to be prepared to leave even your father's house. That's very powerful. You have to take everything. And he didn't even know exactly where he's going. And even if he did, he didn't know what he's supposed to be doing over there. He just got to go there. It wasn't clear what would be the whole development over there. Hashem doesn't tell him, listen, you're going to be doing this and this and this, and give him a whole itinerary, you know. Nowadays you book a ticket to get an itinerary with the whole mitzvah. Yes. Avraham Avinu didn't have any itinerary. So that's a powerful mitzvah, to leave your father's house. It's just to leave everything. All your family and all your this and all that. So it comes along Chassidus and says a deeper pshat, that Beis Avicha really means your chokhmah, your brain power and your way of thinking. You understand? Because Abor in the Zohar Kodesh, Abor means Firza Chokhmah. Abor means Chokhmah. Avamela, Beis Avicha is like the house of your Chokhmah. In other words, we all have our way of understanding things, you know, we always, you know, my way of picturing things in my seichel and all that. So Avraham said, Hashem said, you've got to get out of that now. You've got to start thinking completely different. And it's not easy to do that, because, you know, you're accustomed to certain things, you know, and all of a sudden, completely to think and to understand and to look at things differently according to the seichel. It's a very tremendous effort. That's what I said to this bar mitzvah boy the other day when he put on the tefillin the first time. When you put on tefillin, that's moichin, that's brain power. And that gives you power to think completely different. You got to start thinking in a completely different way. You don't look at things the way you did before. You see things completely different. And particularly the way we have a book Hashem HaRebbe, if you learn what the Rebbe says and you see how he guides you, and you see things completely different. to the point that you say to yourself, why didn't I cook myself? You know? But that's the headlam that we have with our own beings, that we hide things from our own selves. You know? Not deliberately, but it happens, because that's the way of thinking. That's the way you pick things up, and that's the way you assume. And you assume that things can only be according to a certain pattern, and they can be anything. And that's the end of going out of your father's house. That's a very powerful one. And that's why some people say that's the biggest of all. Even the Akedah doesn't come to that. That's a very powerful Nesoya. If you're going to achieve all of that, then you go El Ha'oretz Asher Arecho. Then you can come to a land, and that means in Eretz Yisrael and Pashtus, that even if some Indian in life later on guides you to another land, and you'll be in another land, but there will be a land of seeing. You'll be illustrated, how do you call it, illuminated land. It'll be there's an expression in Yiddish, a LECH-LECHA-2, how do you call it, illuminated life. And I've seen people like that. I've seen people that they live and they're always sort of, I saw Chassidus Yidden, that they just went ahead and they were always, full of simcha, and they were always, even though they had the most difficult things in life, but they were always for simcha. Because if you have a different way of understanding things, it's a different story. And you react to everything, then you're in Eretz Yisrael. That's Eretz Yisrael. And then what did the Tzemach Tzaddik say to the Chassid? That he asked 3 times, he wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. And the first couple of times the Tzemach Tzaddik didn't answer him. He wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. So the third time he wrote into the Tzemach Tzaddik, or it was in Yechidus, and he said he wants to go to Eretz Yisrael, because in Eretz Yisrael he can serve Hashem really hotline. He wants to go so he better serve Hashem, He was trying to pull the Rebbe's, that he could, to get into the Rebbe's favor, that he would agree that he should go to Eretz Yisrael. So someone said to him, make here Eretz Yisrael. Make where we are here in Russia, make there Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe's got a big thing about it in several sichas. It's got to make where you are, Eretz Yisrael. And the word Eretz is from the word to want. Eretz is from the word Rotzen. The Medrash said, why is the whole earth called Eretz? Because it wanted to serve Hashem. It wants. If you have a real will to serve Hashem and to be devoted to Him without all these limitations of again, you're in Eretz Yisrael. Baruch Hashem, we're in Eretz Yisrael Kipshutei. Therefore, I promise you guys in the old days, I had a couple of Talmidim that they would, if I mentioned at the beginning of the shiur I was going to bring something and I didn't, they would say, but what about what you said you were going to bring? What about it? So I said at the beginning of the class, we're going to mention the Arizal. Yeah. So the Arizal says that in order for there to be Matan Torah in the world, for Hashem to come down and give the Torah, there has to be a certain union of all the spheres, what's called a Yichud, Elyon, a very high one, in order to be Matan Torah. So he says, up until Avraham Avinu, it couldn't have happened. All the Torahs up to Avraham had messed it up. They didn't get that Yichud started, but therefore there wasn't any Matan Torah. He said, once Avraham Avinu heard from Hashem, LECH-LECHA, and he went, he started the Yichud which led to Matan Torah. So therefore the Arizal says that the real one who started off Matan Torah was Avraham Avinu. And therefore Avraham Avinu kept the whole Torah, even though it hadn't been given yet. Yes, it does. And he was already in spirituality, he was into the great Yichud which led to Matan Torah. How did he do it? LECH-LECHA, with all the provision that we've mentioned, then you're on the way to Matan Torah. So that, I want to leave you guys with a very brief message. We're also on the way to Matan Torah. We're on the way to the Matan Torah of Moshiach. Melech HaMashiach is going to give a new view of the Torah. The Alter Rebbe said that Matan Torah will never be again. But nonetheless, Chassidus says that Mashiach will reveal a whole new, and it'll be called like a new Torah, even though it's not. But he will reveal an unbelievable new view of the whole thing. You follow? So it comes along, there's a LECH-LECHA-2, there's a very famous collection of Maimar Zal, which is called the Yalkut. That's what the great Rabbanim call it. But its real name is the LECH-LECHA-2. Because the guy who made this whole collection, his name was Shimon. So they called it the LECH-LECHA-2. So the LECH-LECHA-2, he says that wherever you have doubled letters, yeah, that's a sign of the Geula. Where you have doubled letters, that's a sign of the Geula. So therefore you've noticed that there are certain letters in the alphabet, but they're doubled. For example, take Mem. You got Mem ordinary, and then you got Mem Sophie. Right? You have a, how do you call it? Ending Mem. Take Nun. Yeah, you got Nun ordinary, and then you got a long Nun if it comes at the end. Yeah. That's a double. And then you take Pei, for example. Yeah. Pei. You got an ordinary Pei, and then you got a Pei Sophie. That you call it a final Pei. And then Tzadik is also the same thing. Tzadi, Tzadikot. You got ordinary Tzadi, and then you got a Tzadi Sophie. So that's called Manat Pach. That's what it's called. Manat Pach. It's written in the Gemara that the Tzoifim tiknu Manat Pach. That the Tzoifim, the group of people called the Tzoifim, they made these double letters. That's the whole reason why and how, and they were revealed at Min HaShamayim. So Rashi says, who are these Tzoifim in Masechta Megillah? It occurs in Shabbos and in Megillah, the same Lashon. So in Megillah, Rashi said, who are these Tzoifim? They are the Nevi'im. And he said, why? Because a Novi sees things, he looks. And the word Sofer means to look ahead. You look over and look at something. The spot, the heart Sofim, means that's where people used to look at the base of Mikdash from there. Yeah. At Sofim, a Sofer is an observer. You know, you have a guy at the top of the hill and he looks over, he's called a Sofer. So Sofim, so it comes from one of the great Meforshim, and he said, why does the Gemara use such an expression for the Nevi'im as Tzofim? You know, we never really find that. So he said the double letters are from the Tzofim. Tzofim are people who are looking towards Moshiach. He said they're always looking, and always looking out for Moshiach. Right? Isn't that good? So the Tzofim, they're the ones who made the double letters. How do you call the Mishpistim? People always looking for Moshiach. They made the double letters. Yeah. So it comes along, and it says, LECH-LECHA is two kofs. LECH-LECHA is two kofs. So it says that that's a sign of the Geula. And so the great Meforshim Avraham Avinu was way back, you know, in history. Avraham Avinu set the path. If you live like Avraham Avinu, then you got one foot in the gear. In the Geula. You've got 1 foot, you're already inside a world where the Golas can't affect you, even if there will be a Golas, Chas v'sholem, at that time. And in Eretz Yisrael at the moment is a terrible Golas, unbelievable Golas, and yet nonetheless, if you act this way, then you're not in the Golas. You're not in the Golas. Now, Amira, that's what Manat's Pach. Yeah, the last one is a kof. Yeah, Avraham Avinu is a double kof. LECH-LECHA, a double kof. Yeah, and kof Sofi. It's a real double. First of all, it's a double letter and it's real right, and it's doubled. It's doubled up. So it says the Medrash, this is a sign of the Shiur Shleima. So everybody says, what's him say? Avraham Avinu and the Shiur Shleima means Avraham Avinu is way back. What's him say? The Shiur Shleima.